Hi guys, this is Paul Nunez from Paul's Picks. It's 6/21/2026 Father's Day. I wanted to touch base a little bit about what I'm seeing in the market currently. I'm showing the S&P 500, which is running sideways. So, we had a nice run up since I think it's this April, pulled right up. I don't know, for X number of months, 3 months maybe. No, not even. This is maybe 1.5 months. But then it started to me running sideways. Okay, so the S&P 500 would composite um, of multiple sectors. I think it's heavy in the technology sectors, has been running very sideways. Um, but when I went through each sector, and there's 11 sectors, or some may say 12 or 13 if you count, if you break it down a little more, you can go really into a lot of sectors. But I'm looking at healthcare, finance, consumer staples, discretionary, real estate, materials, and so forth. And everything aside from two sectors is trending down. Um, and it concerns me because it's telling me that most of the trading, or not trading, but just tells me that these sectors are not doing as good as I'd like to see them. They're not doing as good as the S&P. So what two sectors are doing good or okay? I'm going to say XLI, which is the industrials, are doing, you can see it's a little bit better than sideways. If I put a weekly up, you got 3 weeks of positive action. So that's a trend, but it looks like doing somewhat better than the S&P. There's the S&P. There's a few stocks that I'm in the industrials, that I'd like to mention. And that's aside from technology. That's my biggest holdings. And I have things like Cat. These well-known names. Cat on Friday hit a new high. Even on Thursday hit a new high. So this Cat, this is part of the infrastructure build out for the data centers. You need to have those heavy equipment movers, earth movers, and so forth. All the products they sell to put up infrastructure. John Deere is another one. I don't own John Deere, but I did know it made a move, but in that kind of group. But it's performing much worse than Cat. It's, see trends below the S&P. The S&P is the orange line, and I put up Cat, and it's trending higher. So here's the S&P, the orange line, and here's Cat doing its thing. Now it does fall below the 20, so they get concerning, right? Um, what's another biggie in the industrial? CRS, Carpenter. I think it's machinery. Take a quick look in what it does. No, it's aerospace, fabrication, distribution, metals. Okay, I can go into metals, Nucor, and just take a quick look. I think it's kind of holding its own. No, it went down. It's under the 20. So it's not holding its own. Really, I'd say it's consolidating right now sideways. But back to um, industrials, still trending up a few stocks. The, the industrials are pulling up, but you got to pick them carefully. What's easier to pick is SMH. And I like this sector because it is volatile, but it bounces back quickly. And I'll list some of these stocks that are in it. So I just had the SPX. The SPX is consolidating. Note though, all the sectors except for industrials and semis are trending down. I can go through them, like XLV, it's trending down. Most of them look like that. Back to SMH. I am sticking to my favorites. Um, Bigger companies, Applied Materials. That's a clear trend up. It's breaking away, or has been breaking away, and we can go back 6 months, but I'm going to go through a few stocks that I think are easier plays. AMD, that's consolidating. not as good as AMAT. So I am holding that. Um, ARM is much more volatile, but did hit a high on Friday. I am holding it, but it's easier to hold. It's volatile, but it just touched upon the 20, so it's not too bad. ASML, that's a clear trend and stays above the 9. Um, the 9 is the green line right here. So that's easy to hold. If it busts below the 20, that gets questionable. You may think about selling it. This 20 is like the center line of the road here. It's the Bollinger Bands. This is the width of the Bollinger Bands, and that's the 20-day moving average. And this is the 9. So this ASML's, running up over the 9 easily. I'm in Intel. It did make a new high on Friday, so I bought back in on its climb up. So I'm holding it, big volume and a MACD crossover and above the 9. Now here hit below the 20, so tough to hold during that area. But Intel, there's a lot of attention, big in the narrative. I'm on CLA. In CLA, I picked up this, and this is easy to hold because it even sits above the 5-day moving average, which is pink. But the 9, easy, and way away from the 20. CLA is a good one. Lam Research, which is LRCX, fairly easy. You see the SMA, the S&P 500 down here, and here's the 9 and the 5 and the 20. So easy to hold. Um, here's one. Here's one that I like it. MKSI, I don't know a lot about the company, but has a clear trend up above the 9, at least for, over a week. I have Marvell, big in the narrative, nice trend up, easy to hold. Micron, you hear about these guys all in the news. Clear trend up above the 9. You see it, over here for, went sideways for a bit, but then it pushed right back up. So got to have a little conviction in the whole data build out. I do. Um, the only problem is you got a bunch of other sectors that are going down, so that makes it very concerning. Um, SanDisk, another DRAM, like in the same space that Micron is in. Seagate, same thing. You'll see that Seagate, trending up. Western Digital is another guy. On big volume, look at this volume over here, 15 million, where typically it does about 6.2. Over here we got 9, but last 3 days 15. So there's a lot of money pouring into Western Digital. So having said that, I'm still bullish on SMH. I am concerned for the entire market, and I have only, I have a few financials, a few, um, like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. Yeah, I got to pull a big, but you could see that it underperforms and pops up and then comes right down. I think Goldman Sachs is a little easier to hold. You know, sits above the 20 for most of the time. Um, I look for in technology. Technology is a clear trend, much easier to hold. That's where the narrative is. The guidance is there for this data build out. I don't know. I just gonna very bullish on it and would love to hear what you guys think. And I will see you on the trading floor, guys. Bye bye for now.